Hello and welcome to the United Community Channel. My name is Jack and this is your latest Manchester United news and transfer news. And by God, do we have a busy show tonight, guys. We don't have any audio. Hello. Shit. Are you there? Can you hear me? Oh, you can't hear me. Sorry, the mic's working. Welcome to the United Community Channel. We're here. I see you now. We're here. Technical difficulties. Been a few days since we've been live, but you're all welcome, guys. Thanks for joining, and welcome to what is going to be a very, very busy news show tonight. We've got absolutely loads to talk about. We're going to talk about Garnacho. More details have come out about Ruben Amram's scathing criticism of him and pretty much told him to go and find a new club, so we will talk about that. We're going to talk about Matheus Cunha. David Ornstein has given us an update in the past half an hour or so around Cunha, and Fabrizio Romano has doubled down on it as well. It looks like a deal is pretty much done and dusted for him. We're going to talk about Bruno Fernandez as well, guys. There has been updates in relation to Al Hilal coming in and pretty much giving an ultimatum for Bruno Fernandez and saying take it or leave it now. If you don't want it, it's done and dusted. So we'll talk a little bit about that. We've got updates on Liam Delap, guys, to Manchester United potentially. We've also got updates on Embolo. United looking to really have a go at that number 10 and you know, try and improve it as much as possible. So we'll talk a little bit about that as well. Big show to talk about plenty of things, guys. So please do smash a like on the video. Hit subscribe if you're new to the channel. And as always, please do get your comments into the live chat or into the comment section if you're listening back. I do want to know your thoughts. This is your community, so I want to know what you guys think. But of course, guys, we're going to start with Alejandro Garnacho. Now, look, it's been a very interesting couple of days for Garnacho. Obviously, look, he was very disappointed coming off the bench in the Europa League final, and he took to the media to say it, and his brother, you know, wasn't too complimentary either online about Ruben Amram's decision to leave him out of the final. And look, understandable, absolutely understandable. You know, you can be disappointed as a player, you really can, but there's ways and means of going about maybe airing your criticisms, you know, and airing your grievances. And you know, rather than going to the media and speaking about it, you go and knock on the manager's door and you say, look, I'm fucking fuming here and I want to know why I was dropped. And Garnacho went the wrong way about it. He really did. And I think, you know, Ruben Amram has had enough. He really has had enough, and he doesn't take any insubordination within his ranks. And we've seen obviously what he done with Marcus Rashford, and rightly so. And you know, we always go back to the Fergie era, don't we, when we're talking about, you know, real control over the dressing room and control over the club and keeping players in line. And Ruben Amram is setting the groundwork for it. And I think a manager has to do that. He really does. You know, you can look at it with a number of different clubs, and probably most recently you could say maybe Mikel Arteta when he took over at Arsenal. He got rid of Aubameyang. I think a year later then he got rid of Lacazette, and these players were obviously not on board with everything that was going on, and maybe that's the case with Garnacho here as well. But the Mail have obviously been speaking about what Ruben Amram said to Garnacho, and this was in front of everybody. This was in front of the whole squad, and he says Ruben Amram warned Garnacho to pray he can find a new club this summer, as he effectively kicked the player out of Manchester United in front of his teammates. Amram was so angry that he effectively told Garnacho to hope to God he can find another club rather than have to return to United for pre-season training at the start of July. Now, again, you can agree or disagree with Ruben Amram and what he has done with Alejandro Garnacho. And look, Garnacho is young, and a lot of his mistakes are aired out in front of the media, in front of, you know, the world and on social media. And, you know, none of us have had that issue when we were 20 years of age. And you have to understand that as well. But you also have to take into consideration that you're held at a higher level than the majority of people. And you're representing Manchester United and you're representing yourself. And I think when you see young players that probably don't have the best guidance in the world, it's got to be said, and when you see players' family members taking to social media, you know that, you know, it's not the greatest thing to do, and it's only going to end in tears. It really is. So We've seen in the past with Garnacho taking to social media to air his grievances, liking posts online that criticise his teammates and criticise his former manager, Erik ten Hag. And to be honest with you, the more time has gone on with Garnacho, I think the more you could see something like this happening. When he initially broke onto the scene, it was quite clear that he was, wanting to follow in the footsteps of Cristiano Ronaldo. I don't think he ever will, to the same extent. But you could see potentially down the line that Manchester United were going to lose him to somebody like Real Madrid, for example. And I think as time has gone on, I think it's been more likely that it's was going to end the way we think it might end now, and that's him effectively been thrown out of Manchester United by the manager. The manager has to be in charge first and foremost, and I'm completely behind Ruben Amram here. I really am. And if Garnacho's not towing the line, and if he's not doing what the manager wants, and if the manager is not happy with him, then the manager is entitled to get rid of him. Now, I think it's a bit of a, I won't say coincidence, but I think it's probably easier for Ruben Amram to be backed by the board, considering Garnacho is probably surplus to requirements before any of this happened. There was the opportunity for him to leave in January for around £60 million. That valuation wasn't met, so Manchester United didn't sell him. And, we knew Napoli were involved and so on and so forth. And I think the fact that he is a product of the academy, we bought him for 150 grand from Atletico Madrid. So anything that we earned from him in terms of a potential transfer is deemed as pure profit. So Alejandro Garnacho being supposedly, thrown out of the club by Ruben Amram, I think kind of coincides with Manchester United needing to balance the books and needing to get money in the door to I suppose kickstart this rebuild, that we so desperately need. So, I think Garnacho is going to be somebody who falls by the wayside because of this. Now, Ruben Amram has got final say on this. I'm 100% certain of it, because he's the one that has had this falling out, and this is well documented by top tier journalists that when they're talking about something like this, that it's pretty nailed on that Garnacho and Amram have fallen out. And we know what happened when Amram first came in and he was dropped for the Manchester City game. We spoke after that, for a couple of weeks after that, he's gone in the right direction. Marcus Rashford went another way, and he never got back into the Manchester United squad, bar one game, I think. But again, I mean, this, I suppose this unprofessionalism and this maybe naivety from a young player has reared its head again, and Garnacho is going to see the exit door this summer. I'm certain of it. I'm absolutely certain of it. Let's see what you guys think, though, and let's see what you think about the Garnacho situation. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Aaron says, question, would you take Mateta? Sorry for the opt-out. We'll get into that in a few moments. If Garnacho is leaving, he will get good at other clubs. And look, that is a good point, and I'm under no illusion here that Garnacho will go on and have a successful career. He will. It will not be at Manchester United. And I'm okay with that. I'm absolutely 100% okay with that, because Garnacho not fitting into a certain style or not fitting into a certain system. How did that come back? I don't know. I don't know what happened there. I'm sorry. Let me just fix that. There we go. Now, it's going to happen again. Now, watch this. It's going to happen again. No, let me just fix it. Sorry. Let me just fix a couple of things here, because... Right, we can delete that. Sorry, I just don't want it coming back up again. Apologies. There we go. And we've got it there. Yeah, perfect. So yeah, I mean, look, I'm under no illusions that Garnacho will go and have a successful career elsewhere. Absolutely he will, and he will go to somewhere like La Liga, or he will go to somewhere like Serie A, or the Bundesliga, or the French League, wherever it is. He will go and score goals. He absolutely will. Now, we're talking about Manchester United looking to offload Garnacho here and the type of money we're looking to get into the building for him. And I think that's very important here. We were looking for 60 million for him in January. Can we look for that kind of money again? Probably not. And that's not because he played poorly between January and the end of the season. I thought he actually had, for a young player, I thought he had quite a decent second half to the season. But we're talking about the fallout from him and Ruben Amram. And clubs know this is there. And Manchester United know that other clubs know this. So, I mean, look, if we could pick up 50 million for Alejandro Garnacho, I think absolutely fantastic. And I think that's what we should be looking for him. When you're talking about players like Embolo, like Cunha, so on and so forth, that are garnishing the same type of fee, 50, 60 million, I think with the ceiling that Garnacho has and the potential ability that he has in the future, I think it's got to be at least 50 million for Manchester United in the door. And again, this is going to come back to the negotiations of, you know, the board, and whether it be not Dan Ashworth, he's not there anymore, whether it be Jason Wilcox, Omar Barada, Vivel, whoever the case may be. We've got to try and get in as much money as we possibly can for him because, like I said, he is a good talent and he is going to be leaving Manchester United at a time where we will need to replace him. We absolutely will need to replace him. And if we don't, well, I'm sure we will, because we're going to talk about somebody in a moment who's pretty much going to come in and take his spot. You want to be getting as much money in the doors as possible because, you know, the scale of Manchester United's rebuild is so vast that when we do have an opportunity to sell somebody like Garnacho, you've got to do it right and you've got to get as much money in the door as possible and try and get it in as much of a lump sum as you possibly can. We're going to get on to Matheus Cunha in a moment and talk about, you know, the installments that United are trying to work on with him. But ideally, when you're selling a player, you want to get as much money in as you possibly can, first and foremost, because that obviously allows you to, to get the rebuild underway as quickly as possible. Garnacho is not my favourite player anymore, says Passat. Well, look, I mean, everyone has their own personal preference. They really do. But I think from a talent standpoint, he is a very good player for a 20-year-old. I think Lamal is the only player under 20 or under 21 years of age with better stats this season than Garnacho. So look, we are selling a premium player, but I don't care. I'm with Ruben Amram 100% here. I am with the manager. I'm behind the manager 100%. If you don't want Garnacho, it's time to move him on. And I said last November when Ruben Amram came in, I said the player with the biggest learning curve under Ruben Amram is going to be Garnacho. Because he doesn't play the 6, he doesn't play in the 10, or he doesn't play a number 9, and he won't play a wing-back role. So he's going to have to transform his game. All he's ever played before is that wide left, an out-and-out winger who takes on fullbacks constantly rather than, coming inside, link-up play, 1-2s, getting in behind. And yeah, we're seeing the consequences of that now. He's obviously not Ruben Amram's favourite player, and it's time to move on. It's time to move on. And we mentioned it, didn't we, as far back as when Erik ten Hag took over, that the sentimentality aspect from the fan base needs to go. And you will see an awful lot of, fanboys online who support Garnacho more than Manchester United. And the only reason they support United is because Garnacho plays there. We've seen an awful lot of that over the past 10 or 15 years with Ronaldo, Messi, Neymar, Garnacho, these types of players. Yamal probably now with Barcelona, where people are supporting a club because an individual player plays for them, and I can never wrap my head around that. It's all about the collective more so than the individual to me. And look, I think that's why it's time to move him on. I really do. Desi says, manager is sorting out the men from the boys. Some of them are already revealing themselves without Amram having to do anything. Absolutely, 100%. Atal says we have to sign Jonathan David. Looks like he's going to Napoli by the looks of things. But anyway, guys, let's move it on and let's talk about an inbound player more so than an outbound player, and a lot more positive news coming out around this guy, Matheus Cunha. to Manchester United. Obviously, we got the here we go. It wasn't last night, it was the night before, from Fabrizio Romano. And David Ornstein has given us an update, and we know David Ornstein is top tier. And he has said that Manchester United have now met terms of 62 million release clause for the Matheus Cunha contract at Wolves. So Wolves have given Manchester United permission to conclude the deal with the 26-year-old Brazilian international forward to conduct a medical and complete the transfer fee. Fabrizio Romano has also been speaking. He says, no doubt since Sunday night, Matheus Cunha will be a Manchester United player from Wolves for 62.5 million. Release clause paid in instalments. Verbal agreement done on Sunday and to be formally signed next week as always planned. Here we go, confirmed. Now, some of the lesser journalists have been speaking about it. Jay Percy from The Telegraph has said his wages are expected to be around 200 grand a week. Now, 200 grand a week, you might say, wow, that's a hefty chunk of change, and it absolutely is. But if he brings the type of quality and the type of goals that we're talking about to Manchester United that he's got with a poor Wolves team as well, then he's absolutely going to be worth that money. Is he worth 200 grand a week? Only time will tell. Only time will tell. And I spoke this morning on our news show about him, Delap and Embolo. If you were to get the three of them in, there's 49 goals in the Premier League between them this season. I don't care what anybody says. If you can bring 49 goals from three forward players into your team and maybe get a new goalkeeper and sort out leaking goals at the back, we're going to be in the European spots at the end of next season. I'm convinced by it. But you've got to get the players in. So Matheus Cunha to Manchester United looks like it's getting pretty done and dusted. And look, we're getting a player of real quality here, guys. We really are. And what I like more than anything else is the fact that he wants to play for Manchester United. You know what I mean? He wants to play for United. He didn't care whether Manchester United had Champions League football or not. He didn't care whether, United, whatever was going on in the background. This guy wants to play for Manchester United. He really, really does. And they're the types of players you want to get into your squad and into your team. And Ruben Amram has, I think it's quite clear the type of player. And we just spoke about Garnacho, and I remember Ruben Amram speaking very early on under his Manchester United career. He spoke about Garnacho specifically playing in the right-sided number 10 role, and he said we need to get somebody in there that's got a left foot, who has a good left foot, because it opens up all types of angles and overlaps with wide players coming around, shots on goal. It just gives you more options when you've got that kind of inverted person on the right-hand side. And Ruben Amram, we can see by the types of players that we're being linked with, even quite early in this transfer window, that Ruben Amram likes dynamism within his team. He likes players to be able to play a certain amount of roles, not just a specific one. Matheus Cunha can play in either one of them number 10 positions. And we also know he can play in a 4-2-3-1 position, where he can play maybe in that central number 10 role. He can even play as a false 9 at times, or even in an out-and-out number 9 position as well. You're talking about maybe Embolo coming in as well. He's able to play a number of different roles across the forward line. We're talking about Ahmad being able to play in the 10, being able to play as wing-back. We're talking about Bruno. Can he play in the 6? Can he play in the 10? All of these types of things are very, very important with Ruben Amram. And we've spoken as well, guys, about the lack of athleticism within our team. And I think Cunha will bring that as well. Athleticism. He's not a 20-year-old who's learning his trade and is not maybe fully developed physically yet. He's 26 years of age. He is hitting his prime right now. And we've seen that by the figures that he's put up this season in the Premier League. And I think, these are the types of players that Ruben Amram wants to sign and wants to get in as quickly as he possibly can. And rightly so, because, too many times this season, Manchester United have been outrun. They've been outfought, and it's been very disappointing to see. We're talking about only, last season, worrying about a midfield three before Ruben Amram came in of Casemiro, Bruno and Eriksen, and we could start potentially next season with a 4 in midfield of Ugarte, Bruno Fernandes, Cunha and Embolo, and that's, you're going from there to there in terms of physicality and athleticism within your side, but also in terms of the amount of goals you're getting from midfield. Now, if you can couple that up with a new striker coming in the door that can get 15 to 20 goals as well, I think it's all about the collective next season, lads. I really, really do. I think, it looks like, obviously, we're not going to get a Gyökeres or an Osimhen or, a 30-goal-a-season striker like an Erling Haaland. I don't think we're going to get that. So I think it's all about the collective. And I think the system that Ruben Amram plays, it has to be about the collective. Everybody has to chip in. You've got to be able to get 15 goals out of Cunha, 15 goals out of Embolo, 15 goals out of Bruno, 15 out of Ahmad, and all of a sudden it comes together, and I think that's potentially what we're going to see, hopefully, over the next few seasons, as we build and as we improve throughout the transfer windows. Now, the big question mark here, guys, as well, is in around the fee. Now, we know the fee is 62.5 million for Cunha, okay, and that fee has been pretty much set in stone because it's his release clause. Now, the issue here is that Manchester United want to pay that over a 5-year period. But Wolves are being very particular about wanting it paid over 2 seasons. So basically, the full 62.5 million has to be paid in full by the end of the 26-27 campaign. And that does narrow Manchester United's spending limits over the next 12 months at the minimum, and into the next 2 years, because obviously you will have that second repayment. And this is where the negotiation tactics are going to have to be on point, because, again, I go back and reiterate what we've said about, the rebuild and what is needed and the amount of overhaul that this squad requires. We need as much money as we possibly can for each transfer window to try and take advantage of it as much as we can. And if you can spread a £62.5 million transfer fee over 5 years instead of 2, that's massive. That is absolutely massive. You're talking about 12-13 million per season, rather than, your 31.25 million in 2 installments. It's huge. It's huge. It opens up a lot more doors if you can spread it out a lot further. Now, I know there is, I suppose, risks to spreading it out long term as well. And the risks there are, what if Cunha doesn't work out and we sell him in 2 years and we're still paying off his transfer fee 3 years after he leaves? That is one of the risks that you take. But I think if you look at prioritising what we need more than anything else, that's fucking legs in the door. We need players in the door and we need players out the door. And I think if you can limit your spend as much as you possibly can in that time frame, then I think it gives you more options going forward. I genuinely do. But yeah, let me know what you think in the comment section. Let's go through some of your comments here. Martin is in. He says, I'm not going to lie to you. If we keep Garna, Ahmad, Bruno, and get a good striker, get Cunha, scary attack incoming. Daniken says, Cunha is the closest Rashford replacement upgrade you could get, and he works in this system. D is in as well. Good to see you, pal. He says, happy as a pig in shit about Cunha signing. Another note about strikers, the laps, the same age, and the same goal contribution numbers as Highland this season, so he's definitely not the answer. Now, my argument to that would be, and I know exactly what you're saying, and we'll get onto the lap in a moment, but if you put a Delap with a Cunha and Embolo and Bruno behind him, with Ahmad running off of the left flank and Dorgu Ahmad off the right flank and Dorgu off the left, whipping in balls, it is a lot different to, name me any other Ipswich player. I don't know any of them. So, while I do agree, put Highland into the Ipswich team, and what would you get from him? I think you would get an awful lot less than what the Lap has produced. But again, I agree 100%. It is going to be a gamble. It really, really is. But it's going to be a gamble that, we have to see whether it pays off or not, because, it's... it's going to be an interesting summer coming up. It really, really is. And look, if it is the Lap that we get, then we've got to back him. We've just got to back him. We really do. But I think Yeah, I'll reiterate what I said previously. I would be underwhelmed. And look, let's talk about Delap. Look, because he's the next on the list in terms of what we were going to speak about anyway. And we will give a small update on him. Now, again, look, it looks like it's coming down to between Manchester United and Chelsea. It really does. Now, he's going to make his mind up either this week or next week. So we will know pretty soon, whether he's going to choose Manchester United or not. United are there. They have put terms on the table for him. I think they've been accepted. And I think Chelsea have done the same as well. I think both Everton and Newcastle have both spoken to his representatives. But United and Chelsea are the more advanced. Now, if we're talking about Everton, I couldn't see it, to be honest with you. When he's got offers from United, Chelsea and Newcastle there. From a Newcastle standpoint, I don't see why he would go there and play second fiddle to Isak, even though they've got Champions League football. And I did read today or yesterday that Callum Wilson is potentially thinking about there's an offer in place for him to renew his deal there as the backup striker. So I do think it's going to come down to between Manchester United and Chelsea. Now, number of different reports on him. This one is saying Manchester United are optimistic that the transfer will work out for Liam Delap. It is up to the player himself. The package of sporting quality and price makes him a top priority for United. Competitors like Chelsea are probably following other tracks. Graham Bailey says Chelsea are now confident that they will beat Manchester United to the signing of Liam Delap. And Ben Jacobs has said that Liam Delap is expected to decide his future this week and ranks high in Chelsea's thinking. Chelsea have held positive talks and are optimistic now that Man United have no European football. And we do know that players want European football, don't we? And I think Liam Delap would come to Manchester United and would be our number one striker. I don't think that would be the case at Chelsea. You've got Nicholas Jackson. I know he's had a couple of injuries this season. So would it be a job-sharing role at Chelsea? That remains to be seen. But I think if Liam Delap comes to Manchester United, I think it's quite clear he would be our number one striker, whether you like it or not. That would be the case. Now, my main concern here with Liam Delap is, what if we don't get him? What if we don't get Liam Delap? Liam Delap was our backup option if we didn't get Champions League football. Was he the second choice after a Gyökeres or an Osman or even a Benjamin Sesko for that matter? Was that the issue? Now, if Liam Delap doesn't sign and he decides to go to Chelsea, United need to have, and I'm sure they do, and I'm sure we're not, privy to that information as of yet, but I do think that, there has got to be things in place if Manchester United cannot get the Liam Delap deal over the line, and it's going to be very interesting to see what happens if he does decide to go to Chelsea. I do think that means potentially that you're looking at a potential striker. We will sign a striker this summer. I'm convinced by it. We absolutely will. But I think if Liam Delap decides to go to Chelsea, I think you could see Manchester United getting a striker drag on into pre-season. And that is absolutely what we do not want. Is there an argument there that the number 9 position is the one position that you could maybe get away with not having gone on pre-season tour? I don't know. Ruben Amram would have to answer that question. If we're looking for an out-and-out number 9, we know what we want from an out-and-out number 9. Play on the last man, get in behind, be in the box when the ball comes in and score goals. In terms of build-up play, you're talking about your 2 number 6s, your 2 number 10s, your wing-backs, all of that kind of thing. So, yeah, I think if Liam Delap decides to go to Chelsea, I think United could see a potential move for a striker drag on into the summer. And that's not what we want, because we want as many players as possible going on that plane to pre-season over to America, to get a full pre-season under Ruben Amram, to learn the ways, to get his tactics, to bed in his formation, to live and breathe it for 2 or 3 weeks on pre-season, however long it is. And that's the big concern. So let's hope we can get the job over the line as quickly as possible. Let's see. What are you saying here in the chat? Let's see. D says, setting up segues from one point to the next for you, Jack. Totally meant that. There we go. Absolutely. Martin says, Man United have become embarrassing. We should be fighting to win titles, Champions Leagues, FA Cups and etc. But now we're fighting to sign Liam Delap. Well, look, that's where we are. So, we just got to get behind the team and get behind the manager. It's going to be a process. 25 players left Sporting Lisbon when Ruben Amram came in mid-season. 25 players left, okay? And he won the league the following year. His first full season at Sporting. Now, I'm not saying Manchester United are going to do that next season because the Premier League is way, way tougher to win than, the Portuguese league. The year before Ruben Amram came in, Ultras stormed the training ground and started attacking players and coaching staff. Sporting were in disarray, all right? Manchester United are in disarray after the season we just had. I'm not saying we're going to win the Premier League next year, but what I am saying is that given the tools and given the backing, it doesn't have to be another decade before Manchester United start challenging for Premier Leagues. Stick with one manager, stick with his ways, back him, get the players in that suit his system, and let's see what happens. That's what I would say anyway. Let's see. D says, not hearing the greatest about his attitude, but I couldn't give a monkeys if he scored 20 goals next season if we sign him. It's decades of mismanagement, and the managers have taken the hit every time we've seen more of the fall. Go and give Celtic 25 million for the wee Japanese fella, because they like inflated prices up here. There you go. Aaron says, I'd rather Mateta. Passat says, Mateus Cunha is starting to be my favourite player now. And Warren says, problem with selling our players is the money we're asking for. Only United would pay those prices. Got to take the hits, be clever and work damn hard to get back to where we want to be. Well, I slightly disagree with that, Warren, and we mentioned it a few minutes ago. If Embolo is going for 50 million, why can't Garnacho go for 50 million? I think we undervalue our players sometimes, and that's been a big criticism about the previous regime at United, that we were absolutely atrocious at getting good fees in for players. Man City were selling academy players that never even played first team football for 25 million. All the while we were selling, Pelestri for, 1.5 or who had played a bucket load of games. I don't know if that was the actual fee, but you get my point. We've got to get better at selling. So I think if Garnacho is to leave, then we demand 50 million for him. He is going to be a very good player for whoever he goes to, and he's going to score a lot of goals and he's going to score a lot of assists, and we will get that whole narrative from the opposition fans going, haha, look at Garnacho, told you, another player United destroyed, and as soon as he left, blah 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 blah, the usual nonsense. But the pressure to play for United is a lot more than it is, and it's a lot harder to play in the Premier League than it is in the Serie A or La Liga or Bundesliga or Ligue 1. That's the simple facts. Demand what you're worth. Put a price tag on him. There was a 60 million price tag on Garnacho in January. It wasn't met. It was very close to being met by all accounts. So Garnacho hasn't had a bad second half of the season. He's had a decent second half of the season with plenty of potential to build on. I think 50 million is a minimum, to be quite honest with you. D says he'll be a very good player for Fleetwood Town for sure. He absolutely would. Right, guys, want to move it on. I want to talk about Embolo for a moment, okay? Because he's another player that has come up as a potential suitor for one of them number 10 positions. Let me just take a drink of water because I've been speaking for 35 minutes now without taking a breath. But yeah, Embolo. Let's talk about Embolo a little bit. Manchester United seem to be going hell for leather to improve the number 10 roles within Manchester United. And some of that is down to maybe Garnacho moving on. I think some more of it will be down to maybe Ahmad having maybe a mixed role next season as a number 10 at times and as a wing back at other times. And maybe Bruno Fernandez a little bit, playing a little bit deeper in one of the number 6 positions alongside, whether it be a Ugarte or whether we go out and sign somebody else, or whether we keep Casemiro, whatever the case may be. So nonetheless, it looks like Manchester United are going to be going out and trying to sign a couple of number 10s in the summer transfer window. Now, Fabrizio Romano has been speaking about it. He said Manchester United value Embolo. United want to add another player behind the striker with Cunha. Embolo is among the names of United's target list. And this is very important here, because we're talking about that little triangle up front. That little triangle, I'm not part of the Illuminati or anything. I'm talking about that little triangle up front. The 2 number 10s and the number 9, okay? And Manchester United want to improve all of them areas over the summer transfer window. Now, the 3 names, obviously, Cunha is pretty much done and dusted. Liam Delap is the other one for the 9. And now it looks like Embolo is highly rated for another one of them number 10 roles. Now, I mentioned this morning, those 3 players have a combined 49 goals in the Premier League this season. Cunha has 20, Embolo has 17, and Delap has 12. Okay, you bring 49 goals into Manchester United's team next season in them 3 forward positions, and try and work on not conceding as many goals. Maybe get a new goalkeeper in, maybe a new number 6 if that's part of the plan. I guarantee you Manchester United will be challenging for Champions League spots next season. We just will. Now, that all comes down to them 3 players that I mentioned actually continuing to perform like that. Okay? Now, the one issue that we have here is that Manchester United is a bigger demand than any of the clubs we mentioned with Ipswich, with Brentford, or with Wolves. However, a plus side to this is that all these 3 players that we mentioned fit Ruben Amram's system perfectly, especially Embolo and Cunha. They are perfect to play them 2 number 10 roles. And the number 9 role is just an out-and-out number 9 position. And I think Liam Delap's link-up play is actually quite good. And I spoke with Paul Parker last week when I interviewed him, and he is massively impressed with Liam Delap. He says he reminds him of Mark Hughes in terms of his movement, in terms of his link-up play and his finishing. So you're talking about totally revolutionising that forward line if we were to bring in 3 players like that. Now, you've got to hit the ground running and they've got to score goals, but I think it's a massive, massive upgrade bringing in somebody like Embolo, Cunha and Delap for them forward positions. It just transforms Manchester United forward line. Really does. Really, really does. And I would be super excited. I really, really would be super excited if it was to happen. I mean, we mentioned, didn't we, that, look, goals are what's needed within this Manchester United squad. Just goals. Remember the what was the band that Tommy Lee played for? Brain fart. And they had a song called Girls, Girls, Girls. Manchester United's song should be goals, 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 because that's what we need this summer. We really, really do. And I think if you add some good talent into that side, like Embolo, like Cunha, like Delap, and again I go back to the collective, guys. We're not in a position to sign a player that will go out and score 30 goals, because that would cost you 110 million. To sign one player like that. Motley Crue, there we go. Thank you, Daniken. That The Dirt, the movie on Netflix about that is just one of the greatest movies ever. Anyway, sorry, I digress. I go back to what I've said. It's going to be about the collective from now on with Manchester United. Over the next few... Now, we never know. We could have a Cunha or an Embolo or a Delap that just absolutely explodes next season if they play for United and score 30 goals. You never know. But what we're buying and what we can afford to buy in the transfer window is players that fit a system and that collectively within the team can contribute. And that means 15 to 20 from you. 15 to 20 from you, 10 to 15 from you. You're a wing back now, right? I want 12 to 15 goals there, or whatever the case may be. And I think that's where Manchester United find themselves at the moment, and that's the direction that we're going in. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that as long as it produces results. You do not need that. And you could go back to any of the top sides that Manchester United had. The 2008 team, I know Ronaldo scored them 42 goals that season, but you had Tevez scoring goals, you had Rooney scoring goals, you had Carrick chipping in with goals, Fletcher chipped in with a lot of goals that season, Hargreaves was scoring goals, Scholes was scoring goals. You know what I mean? So it's all about the collective. You go back to the 99, you had four strikers within the team. We all know who they are. Scholes, Beckham, Giggs were scoring, you know. And I think that's what we need now. You know, we need the collective. We need, if it is Mbeumo, Cunha, Delap, if they all get 15 to 20 goals a season, fantastic. You're leaving out then, you're not even taking into account what Ahmad is going to score, what Bruno is going to score, you know, what Mason Mount is going to score, Kobbie Mainoo is going to score, Xerxes, you know, he doesn't score an awful lot, but you get my drift. All of a sudden, you're going from what we've seen over the past couple of years and United being in a negative goal difference to, right, all of a sudden there's goals in this team and something that we can, you know, really get excited about. And I think that's what maybe the plan is this summer, more than anything else. But anyway, let's get through some of your comments here and see what you're saying. We're going to be talking about Bruno Fernandes in a moment before we finish up as well. D says he'll be a good player for, oh yeah, we read that one already. Adam says, do you think we will sell Anthony? Yeah, I think Anthony will go, to be honest with you, Adam. I mean, I don't see him coming back and fitting into Ruben Amram's system. I think he's gone away now, and we said when he left that Anthony, we hoped he could go there and absolutely burn it up, and that's exactly what he's done. And not because we could take him back and hope he scores 5 to 10 goals again for us in a season, but so we could sell him and get money for him. And it looks like we can get anywhere between 30 and 35 million for him, and that's a win-win for the output that we got from Anthony for the couple of years that he was here. It just didn't work, and sometimes it doesn't work, and it's a shame that you pay so much for a player, and that's down to bad negotiations from the old regime at United, the John Murtahs and the Ed Woodwards and the Neil Murtahs and or whatever they were called under the Glazers. It's down to them being bad at negotiating. I mean, I remember the summer for Anthony, we were talking about him on the transfer shows that he was initially worth 30 to 35 million when we were going to Ajax for him. And we left it drag because we were chasing Frankie de Jong. When Frankie de Jong fell through, we went back to Ajax. They had already sold 4 or 5 players in there out of that team, that good team that they had. And they went, no, hold on, you're not taking another player this late in the transfer window unless you pay us premium. And we ended up paying fucking 85 million for him or whatever it was. You know, so Anthony is to go. He is. And it's time to move on. Anthony is good now, says the special one. Yes, and this goes back to what I said a few minutes ago. Anthony is good in Serie A, all right? He ain't good in the Premiership. And there's a lot of players that came to the Premiership and didn't do it, but went elsewhere and had absolutely fantastic careers. Diego Forlan, for example. Now, I still think Diego Forlan probably came to us a bit young. I think if he was maybe here at 26, 27, he would have been a fantastic player. But he came very young. He didn't do it. He went back to Spain and he absolutely, had a fantastic career and was a very, very good striker. The Premier League is a different kettle of fish, lads. It just is. It really, really is. Let's see, what are we saying here? Vincent is in, he says, very one on loan improved. Should we sell if other teams are willing to buy those players? Young blood waiting to come up. Rasmus is a must go. Loan him out next season, but don't take the loss on him. Yeah, I think Rasmus will go. As well, absolutely. Right, guys, I want to talk a little bit before we finish up about Bruno Fernandes, okay? Because, look, Bruno Fernandes is probably the one shining light that Manchester United have in their, well, he is him and maybe Ahmad this season. And we've heard reports over the last couple of weeks about Saudi Arabia being very, very interested in Manchester United's Bruno Fernandes, and that they were going to put an offer on the table for him, and I think maybe 1 or 2 offers have been made already. But reports coming out today from the Daily Mail have suggested that Al Hilal have given Bruno Fernandes a take it or leave it offer of £700,000 a week tax-free. The whole package is worth 200 million tax-free over 3 years. If he accepts, Al Hilal are ready to make a formal bid worth 100 million pounds to Manchester United. This is massive, Okay, and this is massive, and this has to be taken seriously, both by player and by club, for a number of different reasons. First and foremost, let's talk about the player. 200 million over 3 years is generational wealth. You cannot just outright turn that down without actually thinking it through, Now, look, the one thing I would say about Bruno Fernandes, he comes across as the type of player that is very driven to succeed and to win trophies. And the opposition fans will go, yeah, well, why is he at United? Yeah, and good one. I don't see why he would give up so much time to Manchester United just to move to Saudi Arabia when maybe there's things being put in place that might mean we could be successful in the next few years. Okay? Second of all, the club have to take a serious look at this as well. Because what it means for the club is that this rebuild that we're getting, Bruno Fernandes, getting 100 million for Bruno Fernandes is pretty much pure profit on the PSR and the FFP books as well, because he's been at the club so long. But what it also means is 100 million reinvested into the squad means the rebuild happens a lot quicker. Now, get me a player for 100 million that's as good as Bruno Fernandes is right now, I think you struggle. Or I think you would maybe find a player for the same price with the same quality as Bruno, in my opinion. But the issue with that is, what player wants to come to Manchester United after they finish 15th in the Premier League? I don't think Bruno Fernandes is going to go, if I'm being completely honest. I think he will stay. But I do think that this Saudi Arabia bid and the interest in Bruno Fernandes has got to be taken seriously from all sides. Because if it's not, well, it doesn't matter if it's not. If it's not, fantastic. But I do think it is going to be taken serious. United are going to say, geez, 100 million. Look, Bruno, we leave it up to you. If you want to take the money, we won't stand in your way of leaving, because we're going to get a good transfer fee for you. And likewise, Bruno Fernandes is probably going to go, well, look, if he accepts, I'll go, because I'm not going to get an offer. So, again, I don't see it happening. I think Bruno Fernandes will stay put, but I think in maybe 2-3 years' time, if a similar offer like that won't come in. But if you're talking about getting an offer for 60 million for Bruno when he's 33, 34, and maybe they're offering him 100 million for a 3-year deal, then he might look at taking it, But I think for now, Bruno Fernandes is probably going to stay put, to be quite honest with you. Let's see what you guys have to say on the subject. What have we got? Let's see. D says, we're there. Yeah, D says 120 million quid, and we can give them the first 6 digits of the phone number to even open talks, and not a penny less. There we go. Bruno Fernandes will stay, says Passat. Paul is in. He says, Bruno said that he cares more about success than money. He's going nowhere, never going. And again, that goes back to what I said. I think he is driven more so by wanting to win with Manchester United than, giving up maybe 5 of his best years to United when they were so poor, to just walk away and go to Saudi Arabia without... I think he would probably more than likely go to a Real Madrid or a Barcelona or a Bayern Munich for a lot less money than he would to Saudi Arabia. And I think if that's the issue, then you're talking about probably a transfer fee of less money coming in, and then United won't accept. So I think that for that reason, we won't see Bruno leaving. D says, in fact, 120 million quid and Marcus Leonard, and then we can do it. Connor says, I think we would have to see what players on the market would come to United before we cash in, and that's what we mentioned there as well, didn't we? If we're selling Bruno for 100 million, it's going to cost 100 million to replace him because he's so good. But what £100 million player is going to want to sign for Manchester United, given where we are at the moment? Any £100 million player has Real Madrid chasing him, Bayern Munich, Barcelona, probably City, or you know what I mean? So that's the dilemma. So I think the more likely scenario is that Bruno stays at Manchester United. Vincent says, if Bruno does take the deal and the rebuild don't happen, we will just be like a lot of great players that don't have a Premier League medal. Then his lot out in cash too. Big decision for him. United can't survive without Bruno. Well, United can survive without Bruno. I would disagree with you on that one, Vincent. Better players than Bruno Fernandes have left Manchester United and we've survived. I think what we're getting at here is the time at which he leaves is pivotal to what we. I think. Look, we bought Bruno Fernandes for a relatively, I won't say cheap price, but he's been worth every penny we've paid for him over the last few years. And I would love nothing more than Bruno Fernandes to lift the Premier League trophy. I think he deserves it, given what he has done for Manchester United and given how poorly the club has been run and how bad we've been over the last few years. Nobody deserves to lift the Premier League title for Manchester United more than him, and the fact that he's captain as well. So I think we just see it out with Bruno now. I think we give him a new deal if he wants one. I think he only signed a new deal recently anyway. But let him see out his deal and let him stay with Manchester United for the next 2 or 3 or 4 years, and let's build around him, and let's use him as the stepping stone to bigger and better things, because he is a fantastic footballer and he deserves every bit of success that hopefully United will have over the next couple of years. And I think that's very important as well, And I talk about sentimentality and not having too much, but I think with Bruno Fernandes, I mean, he's given so much to Manchester United, and you see the disappointment in his face the other night after the Europa League, and we seen it in the Europa League final with Solskjaer as well, where he was crying and stuff like that. So I think he deserves it more than anyone else. Paul says, let's not forget he'll play till his late 30s. Plenty of time for a cash grab. He won 2 trophies, 4 finals in the last 3 years. He'd be mad to go. Signs there that we're better than we admit. Yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree. And like I said, build around him now over the next few years and let him go to Saudi at 34, 35, and you'll still get a nice fee. And the fact that he takes care of himself, he's never injured, he's a captain of the club, yeah, keep. If he stays and turns down, he instantly gets legend status, especially if we win the league with him in the next 3 years, says D. Connor says, I don't think we can replace Bruno, but if we were to get Embolo, Ederson and Delap, I would take the money. But will that happen with Newcastle in for Embolo and Chelsea in for Delap? Well, that's the fickle web we weave when it comes to selling players. If you were to sell Bruno, you've then got to go and buy probably 3 players to replace him, given what he's done. How much is the McTominay buyback clause? He ain't coming back. And why would he? In fairness, Elijah says, "Are you another United fan who doesn't like Delap?" I don't dislike Delap. I will be quite honest. I will 100% back him if he's Manchester United's number 1 striker next year. I will back him, and I hope he does well. And I think the potential for him to do well is there. Again, I mentioned it a few moments ago. Spoke with Paul Parker last week, and he's a big fan of Delap. He said he reminds him of Mark Hughes an awful lot in terms of his movement, his runs in behind, his physicality, his finishing, his link-up play. I just think it would be a little bit underwhelming when the likes of a Gyökeres is available, an Osimhen, even a Sesko, so on and so forth. But I will 100% back Delap if he's our striker, like I will with any other player. Every player in my eyes, and I've said this on numerous occasions, gets 2 seasons for me, and I will back you for 2 seasons. I backed Anthony all the way up until maybe halfway through his 2nd season. I just went, this is not working. I've done the same with Onana, and I've done the same with Højlund. It was only, I'd say, around the international break in March where I just went, I remember he scored a goal on international break, and he scored a goal before he went on international break for us, and I went, right, okay, all right, okay, let's see what he can do now when he comes back. And he came back, done nothing, and I said, it's it. It's over now. It's done and dusted. So every player deserves 2 seasons. And I think Omar Barada said that specifically when he came in as United CEO. He said, 2 years. That's all you get. You get 2 years. And if you don't do it after 2 years, you're moved on. And rightly so, because you've got a market value as well. And your market value decreases not only by the lack of game time you get if you're playing bad, but also the amount of time that's left on your contract. If you've got 3 years left on your deal, you're worth more than you are if there's 1 year left on your deal. And that's just business. You know what I mean? But anyway, guys, look, I think we'll leave it there because it's been a great show. I've really enjoyed it. I think I'm going to try and do as many of the morning shows as I can. Now they're pre-recorded videos, so I'll do maybe 10 to 15 minutes of the morning news, and I'll upload them. Should have them up by 11 o'clock most mornings. So yeah, make sure you are turning on notifications, guys. Do hit the subscribe button as well. It helps out the channel an awful lot, like you don't understand. So please do hit that subscribe button for me. Do hit the like button on the way out as well if you haven't done so already. But yeah, delighted to be back. Delighted. I do enjoy the transfer season, I've got to say, especially since we do so many shows around it. But we will be back, obviously. And again, thanks to everybody for your condolences over the last few days as well. My grandmother passed away last week. She was 90 years of age. She had a great life. But thanks to everybody for all the condolences on YouTube and on Instagram and TikTok and stuff like that as well. It doesn't go unnoticed. I do appreciate it. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting couple of weeks and couple of months. I am taking over a team locally, managing them. We're going to start pre-season in the middle of July, so I'm going on holidays this Saturday actually, so the evening shows will probably be a little bit hit and miss for a couple of weeks, but I will get the morning shows up every morning, so make sure you are turning on notifications. You get notified the second we get a video up or any piece of content. But make sure you go over to Instagram. Instagram is exploding at the moment, guys. I've got about 2,000 new followers in the space of a month, I think. Anytime there's breaking news, I just pop up the news up with a picture and stuff like that. So yeah, make sure you're following on Instagram and on TikTok and all that good stuff as well. So appreciate it, guys. Thanks for watching. Smash a like in the video. Subscribe if you're new. I'm out of here. I'll chat to you tomorrow. Take it easy. Have a good evening. Good luck.